This lesson is going to be about 11.3, which is about volumes of pyramids and cones. Now, before we go over this, I want to go over something really quickly with you guys, which is the difference between prisms and pyramids, because it might be confusing, because they kind of look similar, okay? Now, with prisms, you have two parallel and identical bases, but with pyramids, you only have one base. Now, in prism, your faces that you use, to find your heights and stuff are always parallelograms or rectangles. However, in pyramid, your faces are going to be triangular, which means they're going to be triangles. Now, keeping this in mind, also one more thing that can really help you to identify prisms and, pyramids is that in a prism here, your edges are always like this. But in a pyramid, there will be one of the edges that's like all pointy together, like that. Okay? Now, keeping this in mind, let's go ahead and look at our lesson right now, okay? Oops, let me delete that. Now, 11.3 is about volumes of pyramids and cones. Volume of pyramid and cone is 1/3 the product of the area of the base, B, capital B, and the height of the pyramid. Now, keeping this in mind, now it says the height here. Now, please remember the height here, the definition of height is that it is perpendicular with one of the sides. That's what makes it a height. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the first question here. It says, what is my volume of the triangular pyramid? Well, to figure out my volume of my triangular pyramid, I need to first figure out my capital B, which is my area of my base first. Now, let's take a look. What type of shape is this base? This base here is a triangle. So I need to do 1/2 base and height with my area of my base here. So let's figure out my base and height. Well, my base and height is 4 and 3. So let me plug this in. So 1/2 times 3 times 4. And this gives us 6 if we put it into the calculator. That is my area of my base, or my capital B. Now I need to figure out my height of my period. Remember, my height is always the line that's perpendicular with my base here. So my 5 here will be my height. So I do 5 times 6. And also remember, volume of pyramids and cones is going to be multiplied by 1/3. So I multiply this by 1/3. 5 times 6 gives us 30, and 30 divided by 3 will give us 10. So this means my volume of my triangular prism will be 10, and it's going to be meters cubed because it's volume. Now let's go ahead and do question number B. Question number B here says that what's the volume in cubic feet of a square pyramid with base edges 40 and slanted height of 25? Now, look at this word, slanted height. Now, slanted height is slanted height. It's not the height of my pyramid. Just like its name, it's the slanted height of my pyramid. It's like the length of the slanted side, but that's not what the height I'm looking for, which is the height is the line that's perpendicular to my base here, which I don't have. So this is what I'm trying to find so I can solve my question. Now, in order to find my height here, first of all, if you kind of imagine in your head, like, this is kind of like a triangle. You can imagine in your head that this is a triangle. Now, the slanted side is like the 25 right here on my triangle. This x right here that I'm trying to find is like the height of my triangle. And then this part right here, well, we can figure this out very easy because we know if this whole length here is 40, then half of this length right here will be 20. So therefore, this will be 20. Then we can find our x here really easily. Now, let's go ahead and use the Pythagorean theorem, which is the a squared. Let me go ahead and put the right angle right here, which is the a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Equals c squared. Now, I know if this is the right angle, then the side that's right across from it will be the c. So I put 25 squared equals. Now, my x is going to be my a squared, and my 20 is going to be my b squared. Then I just have to solve. Well, 20 squared will give me 400. 25 squared will give me 625. I put x squared just like the way it is. Then I'll subtract 400 on both sides. This gives me x squared equals 225. Then, to isolate my x by canceling this square, I will just square root both sides. This and this cancels and gives me x. And then square root of 225, when you put in the calculator, will give you the value of 15. This means that my actual height of my pyramid right here is going to be 15. Now I have everything I needed. Now I can find my area of my base, or my capital B, and my height. Well, I already know my height is 40, so let me put 15. Then let me find my area of my base. Now, on this question, you have to read carefully that it says that this is a square pyramid. Now, a square pyramid means my base is a square. So this means if my base here is 40, then my height of my square base is also 40. So my base, or my area of my base, will be 40 times 40 because square is base times height. Which if I put in the calculator, it will give me 1600. Then I will just have to multiply. I have to use my formula, my volume, which is 1/3 capital B times my height. So I just plug in everything into my formula here. Okay, so I do V equals 1/3 capital B, which is 1600, and then times by my height, which is 15. Now, once you put this in, your volume here will be 8,000, and it will be feet cubed. And that's going to be how I solve this question. Now let's go to question number 2. It says determine the volume, and we're going to leave my answers in terms of pi. When it says leave my answers in terms of pi, this means I don't put the pi in my calculator. I just leave it in my answer. Okay, so I need to first, with my volume here, I need to do 1/3 B, which is the area of my base, times it by the height. So I need to first figure out my area of my base here, which is a circle. Now I need to know my circle formula, which is going to be pi r squared. So looking at my shape right here, what will be my radius, or my r? It's going to be 7 right here. So I plug in. So it'll be pi 7 squared. Now since we're leaving our answers in terms of the pi, we're not going to put pi into the calculator until we're asked for it. So right now, just do whatever the numbers are. So 7 squared will give us 49, and then we keep the pi where it was. Now, this is going to be my capital B, which is my area of my base. Now I need to figure out my height. Now, similar with this question, we don't actually have the height. The height that we have the length that we have right here, it's a side length of my cone. But this is not the actual height that I'm looking for, which my actual height has to be the line that's perpendicular with my base, which I don't have. So similar with this one, you kind of have to imagine it like a triangle. So let me go and draw the triangle. Well, I know here's will be 7 because this is the length right here. I know the side length of my cones is 25. And I know I'm trying to find my x here, which is my height. And let me put this triangle right here. Then I just need to use the Pythagorean theorem to find my height. So let me take a look at this. Well, I know this will be C because that's the side that's across my right angle. So let me first write my formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I know C is 25 squared equals, well, let me let A be X, and let me B, and let me let B equals 7. So I will have X squared plus 7 squared. Then 25 squared will give me 625. 7 squared will be 49. And X squared, I'll just leave it the way it was. Okay. My next step will be I need to go ahead and subtract 49 on both sides. And that will give me X squared equals 576. Now to cancel out the square of my x here, I need to go ahead and square root both sides. This and this cancels, gives me x. On the other side, the square root of 576 here will be 24. This means my height of my cone here is 24. Well, now I have everything I needed. My volume of my cone is 1/3 the area of my base, which is capital B, times it by my height. Well, I already have my area of my base. It's 49 pi. So now I just have to do volume equals 1/3 times my area of my base, which is 49 pi, times it by my height here, which is 24. And I had put in my calculator. Now, if we put this in the calculator, your answer that you'll get here will be 392 pi. And it's going to be inches cubed. Now let's do one last question right here. It says the covering of this tapis rests on pole that comes together like a concurrent lines. The resulting construction is approximately a cone. So we know this is a cone. This is what the question wants to use as, which is a cone. Okay. Now it says that if this picture is 12 feet high, so from here to here, I should draw it separately. So we have a cone, and we know this cone is 12 feet high. with a base of diameter of 14. So all the way from here to here is 14. Now what is my volume to the nearest cubic foot? Now if it says to the nearest cubic foot, this means we want our actual answer. So this means that we're not leaving our answers in terms of pi. So we have to actually solve. Now to figure out my volume of my cone here, I still need to use 1/3 times my capital B and my height. Now I need to first figure out my area of my base, which is the capital B. I know the area of cone is pi r squared because it's a circle. The area of my base is going to be pi r squared because it's a circle. So now I need to figure out what's my r. Now, in my question here, I'm given the diameter, which is 14. But I know my radius, or the r, is going to be half of 14. So all I have to do is just do 14 divided by 2, which is 7, and that will be my radius, or my r. So I just plug it in. So I do pi times 7 squared, which this will give us 49 pi. Now, I'm still leaving in terms of pi here until the last very step, because this will keep my answer more accurately. Unless the question says so, you always round until the very, very end. Okay, now this is my capital B. Now I just have to find my height, which on this question is already given to me. It's 12. So I will just do 1/3 times my area of my base, which is 49 pi, times by my height, which is given for the question, is 12. After I put this into the calculator and round it to the nearest cubic foot, my answer should be 616, and it's going to be feet cubed. And that's all we're going to have for this lesson. Let me know if you have any questions.